My name is Goldman. I'm the director and founder of Goldman and Associates. Our firm has a primary focus on family law issues here in Michigan, and today we're continuing our video series designed to educate the public on interesting issues in family law, so please subscribe to our channel. How do we handle co-parenting expenses? Now this is a very, very interesting issue because people spend a lot of time trying to isolate who's going to get the custody. Trying to figure out when mom is going to see the kid, when dad's going to see the kid, and all these things. And the expenses associated with that don't get the same press. There's often a glossing over of the expense, and sometimes it's significant. Now, of course, if mom and dad live 2 blocks away from each other, this doesn't become so important. But, if mom's living in Alpena, dad's living in Troy, then all of a sudden we have a huge issue. It's one thing to figure out where the child is going to be on such a particular weekend, whatever, but then it's another question of how do we arrange the pickup and the drop-off of the child, because that may result in a significant expense, particularly over the course of a year. It's not just the financial expense of transportation, but there could be other things. You could merit to have children who are engaged in expensive hobbies like a horseback riding or even hockey that has a lot of gear. If you get somebody who likes basketball, you're lucky. There's almost no gear. But if you got somebody who's into football or hockey or something that requires a lot, so it's a big expense. So how do parents handle the expense, particularly when one parent has the custody and one only sees the child occasionally? I think one thing you've got to do is, obviously we've got to be fair. We don't want to not have the item because the parents can't agree on how to pay for the item, right? Because that's not in the best interest of the child. We want to try to give the child as much as possible. So I think it's very important for the parents to be transparent about their financial situation. A lot of times in a post-divorce environment, the parents don't want to tell each other how much money they have at their disposal. They don't want to act like they're doing too well, or the other way, they don't want to act like they're not doing that well. So they don't. But if there's a transparent discussion about the finances, there's more of a possibility that parties can work something out and be reasonable. If somebody's making much more money than the other, so maybe instead of 50-50, maybe the expenses associated with that particular thing can be split, 60-40 or 70-30, or in some way that makes sense. All of this sort of dovetails into the development of a joint budget. A budget that will take care of these things so that the parents know that at least it's covered. Now one could say, well look, I'm only paying child support. That's all I'm obligated to pay and that's it. And you'd be right. I mean, the court tends to order child support. The other things the court leaves up to the parents to figure out. And if you want to take the position that you don't want to pay anything other than child support, so therefore your kid can't do hockey or whatever extracurricular, that's on you. And you may have to figure out whether or not you're acting A, within your budget, and B, within the best interest of your child. At the end of the day, the court is going to always want to see equitable distribution when it comes to your stuff. You might consider the same format when it comes to expenditures for the child. That is, they should be equitably distributed too. Equitable, again, doesn't mean equal. So if one person is making a lot more money than the other, it should be taken into account. But I think if the parties determine what the financial transparency is, establish a joint budget, and then come up with an equitable, fair solution of how we might undergo the expense, you're going to have a couple things going on. You're going to have better relations with the ex, the child is going to be happy, and most importantly, you won't have to go to the judge for everything. And you know as well as I do, every time you involve the judge, you involve the lawyers, and therefore you involve more expense. Now, if you have any questions about that, reach out. We'll be glad to help you out.